Have you ever noticed that when a sheep is scared, the rest of the flock usually isn't far behind and following their lead? That's right. Sheep are just like us in many ways, social creatures that often do what their friends do. But why do they do that? And how does this behavior help them survive? Let's find out in today's episode. Hi, I'm your host and you're watching this channel. Now, before we get started, we want to thank one of our patrons for asking this question. If you have a question you'd like to ask, you can do so through the link in the description below. Now back to the question at hand. When a predator approaches a group of sheep, the terrified animal will typically run and try to escape. However, studies have found that if there are other sheep around, they won't try to flee as fast or as far as they would if they were alone. Why do you think that is? You could say it's because the sheep are distracted by their friends and don't want to leave them behind, but that's not the real reason. You see, sheep aren't actually worried about their friends when they're being chased by a predator. Instead, they know that running away is the best way to survive. So when a sheep sees another sheep running in the opposite direction, they assume the other sheep has seen a predator and is trying to escape. This instinct kicks in even if there's no predator around. In 1998, researchers at Lincoln University in New Zealand conducted an experiment with 24 sheep to determine if the animals would follow the actions of others in the absence of a predator. To do this, they placed two groups of 6 sheep in separate enclosures, one with a plastic bag and one without. Every half hour, one of the sheep from the control enclosure was let into the experimental enclosure for 5 minutes. The sheep in the experimental enclosure had no way to exit during these 5 minutes, but the door was opened again when the sheep from the control enclosure was removed. The process was then repeated several times over the course of a day. Researchers also recorded how long each sheep spent bleating and vocalizing while they were in the experimental enclosure. At first, the sheep didn't know what to do when they were placed in the experimental enclosure. But after seeing the plastic bag, all of the sheep started running around the enclosure in the same direction, bleating the whole time. After a few trials, they all did this regardless of whether or not there was another sheep in the enclosure with them. Researchers concluded that sheep will conform to the behavior of others, even when there's no obvious external stimulus like a predator. They also noted that the sheep's decision to run and their increased vocalizations indicated that they recognized the plastic bag as a potential threat. Now, you might be wondering why on earth a plastic bag would resemble a predator to a sheep. Well, keep in mind that the sheep's ancestors were domesticated from wild animals, and in the wild, animals like wolves and dogs often chase sheep. So it makes sense that over the years, sheep have come to associate certain moving objects with danger. Unfortunately for them, plastic bags are often mistaken for these perceived threats. But why do sheep feel the need to conform to the behaviors of others? As it turns out, there are several benefits to doing so. First, if a sheep doesn't conform and stays behind when the flock runs away, it may be left behind and become easy prey for a predator. Second, if a sheep doesn't conform and tries to stay put while the others run away, the animal may end up injured as the rest of the flock runs past it in a panic. Finally, if a sheep doesn't conform and tries to lead the flock in a different direction, it may get lost and separated from the group. In all these scenarios, the non-conforming sheep would be putting itself in danger, which is something sheep are hardwired to avoid. In short, if a sheep doesn't stick with the group, it sticks out, making it much easier for a predator to target. Staying with the flock allows sheep to blend in, confusing predators, making capture much more difficult. And that's just one of the many reasons why sheep follow each other. In future episodes, we'll explore other fascinating topics, like why sheep eat their own poop and why they like to eat meat. So be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss out. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to click like and share it with a friend. You can also subscribe to our channel for more fun science videos. And if you really want to help us grow, leave a comment below with some ideas for future videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.